Good morning. Good morning. This is Valerie Leonard. I'm the founder of Nonprofit Utopia. I want to say thank you so much for joining us this morning. And for those of you who have been following, you might know that we're focusing for the month of July on Grants.gov. We're showing folks how to navigate Grants.gov and then giving you strategies for applying for federal grants. So this is, I believe, our fifth video for the month. And in prior videos, we showed you how to look at your own internal capacity for applying for federal grants. We also showed you how to navigate grants.gov. And today we're going to show you how to create a workspace on grants.gov. As you may or may not know, you can't apply for federal grants without creating a workspace. So we're going to go to the grants.gov website and show you how to navigate the website so that you can create a space for yourself. And in the meantime, I want to invite you to leave questions or comments in our comment section. It would be great to let us know who you are, where you're from, if you plan to apply for any federal grants, or if you had experience with applying for federal grants, and share what some of your experiences have been, some of your challenges, and any advice that you might have. All right. And before we go on, I see that we have a comment from Randy Smith. Randy Smith Randolph, if you're still there, hello. Thank you so much for stopping through. She sends us greetings from Black Beverly Hills in Los Angeles. Yay! Yeah, we're here in Chicago. So thank you so much for stopping through. If you have any comments, any questions, please let us know. All right, so without further ado, we're going to go through that. All right, and then I'll acknowledge others, at the end. All right, thank you guys again. Thank you for the love. Thank you for joining us. So here is the grants.gov website. We're in the applicants section, and we have drilled down to the workspace overview. As I said before, you need to make sure that you have an account on grants.gov, and you also need to make sure that you set up your workspace. In fact, you won't be able to apply without creating the workspace for your application. All right. So there are three different levels. You have the basic, you have the intermediate, and you have the advanced. And the basic level is for organizations, your small organizations, or for organizations, if it's not necessarily small, you only have one or two people who are actually registered for grants.gov. It's important that you not let everybody in your organization have access to these accounts, for obvious reasons. All right, so if we click on to this Learn More tab, we'll see here grants.gov has provided us step-by-step what should happen. So when you have the basic approach, you basically have two roles. You have the expanded AOR role, and then you have the core role of the standard AOR. All right, so the expanded AOR role, that is the role that's kind of governing the whole process. And when we talk about the AOR, we're talking about the authorized organization representative. So every organization that is applying for grants has a point person, and that point person is the AOR, and that person has their information listed as the point of contact. All right, and then you can also have the standard AOR. All right, so again, the first thing you want to do is make sure, and I'm going to expand this because I know it's kind of small, You want to make sure that at least one person at your organization has, one or more of those roles, right? So that's the standard AOR role or the expanded. And then you want to create an internal application workflow so that each of you can make sure that you're submitting your applications um, per, correctly. And they also have an interactive workflow graphic. And this is what the graphic looks like. Um, so the first thing you want to do is have a core role or custom role after you create your workspace. And here's a section here where you can ask questions, look at the FAQs. You can look at your video here. And I'm not quite sure what happens here. That actually expands and lets you know what the roles and privileges are. And I'm not sure that you were able to see that. All right. And then the next thing you want to do is add your team members. So your team members would include all the people in your organization that are working on this grant. Typically, this could be your grant writer. It could be a program manager. You might also want to give access to your CFO or financial manager. And you might also give access to a consultant to, if you have a consultant who is helping you pull these together. And then after that, you can fill out your forms, and when we talk about the forms, we're talking about the application form. So every Grants.gov application has a packet, and that packet will have the actual RFP, but it'll also have some supplemental forms that you need to complete. So all the stuff that you need to submit, you would put that in your workspace, and then you actually submit the application. So the difference between these two roles, I want to go back. The difference between the expanded AOR role and the standard AOR role is the expanded AOR role. That is the person, whoever has that role, they also have authorization to submit the forms. Everyone else, if they're at the standard AOR, they just get a chance to, help collaborate in the workspace. All right, so the third thing you want to do is log in and create your workspace. And the way that, the trigger for that is actually finding an application that you want to submit. All right, and then you hit the red apply button, and then that automatically creates your workspace, and you can see the grant opportunity. All right, and then after that, you download your forms, upload the completed forms, and then you track your application. And we covered that in previous videos. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you will be able to look at some of our prior videos where we covered that process. All right, so the next level is intermediate level, and that's for organizations that have more than two people, that have access, but no more than five. So anywhere between 3 and 5 people who are registered. And then your teams have the AOR who actually submits, as well as a workspace owner, and that person could also be the manager. So you see that you have expanded roles or additional roles. So the first one, the first two, we've already seen these fall under basic. And then you have the workspace manager who is coordinating the work. And then you can also have people who participate, but they don't have any specific role. That means they don't have authority to do anything more than participate. They can't add people, They can't submit applications. They can just review. All right, so you got to make sure everybody is registered with Grants.gov, everybody who is on your team. And then again, you want to design your internal application workflow and assign responsibility. So this is basically internal to your organization. It's a project management process for you, looking at ways that you're going to do the work internally. And you can set that up. There's some links here that will help you to set that up. And again, when you see an opportunity that you want to apply for, you just click onto the red apply button, and then you can add the members who are participants, so all the people who are participating in your process. Again, this could be people on the program side. This could be people in development who are actually focusing on grant writing. It could be your CFO. It could be your executive director. All right. So anybody who has an important role to play is going to be in your team, and then you fill in the forms. And then after the forms have been completed, whoever has that expanded role, which means they have the authority to submit, then they can submit the application. Now, from time to time, you might have an outside consultant. If this is someone who's been vetted, you can make sure that they also have that expanded role so that they can submit, because in times of crunch, you may not necessarily have everybody all in one place. You definitely need a go-to person to be able to do that. And that go-to person could also be an outside consultant in addition to one or two people internally. All right, and then again, you can track your application. All right, so again, the difference between this and basic is you have the workspace manager, who is the coordinator of the space, so to speak, and then you've got people who have no role. And then finally, you've got the advanced. And again, this works best for people who have consultants, and that's not to say that you can't utilize a consultant with either of these, but if you do have a consultant who is there, constantly, this might be your best option. And then this will include too a workspace owner who manages the forms, and then it'll also include someone who can add the subforms. All right, so there are custom roles that you can create, and then here are some resources that can help you set up your workspace. All right, so the first is the workspace process timeline. And again, we have seen this drawing. And this basically, lets you know the process in graphic form. So it's everything we just talked about in graphic form or infographic form. And then this infographic gives you a real good overview of what the roles are. All right, so here are the various roles. You have the e-business point of contact, or POC for the e-biz. And this point of contact, this person is associated with the account. They also represent the organization. And this is the lead person, right? So this person is registered with the organization and not necessarily as an individual. These other people can be registered as individuals, and the point of contact actually gives these people permission. You've got the expanded role for the AOR, and that person can also submit applications. And then you've got your standard AOR. This person can be admitted to the workspace, can submit forms to the workspace, but not to Grants.gov. Only people with the expanded role or eBiz POC can do that. And a point about the eBiz POC, it's important to make sure that you keep these contacts current, especially the eBiz POC, because that's the person that uh, manages your Grants.gov account. And you really don't want to be in a situation where you're submitting grants and this person has left, or this person no longer um, has that responsibility. So you want to keep all of these roles current, but the most important one is the e-business point of contact. All right, so we've gone over these other roles. All right, and again, your eBiz point of contact, this is an administrative position, but they can, also help to submit grants. And then, we talked about the core roles, the expanded roles, the standard AOR, and then the workspace manager. And this is the minimum role. And when I say minimum, we're talking about the workspace manager. And then you can have a custom role. And this could be someone who has any combination of the privileges that are outlined in this chart. All right, so this chart just compares the various roles that each one has. So for example, managing the organization, and this is an expanded role, and your eBiz point of contact, as well as the person with the expanded AOR role, they have access where they're managing the organization's workflow in terms of grants, right? And then person who can view the organization's files. This is the standard AOR, managing clients, the people who have, managing applicants, or that would be the eBiz role and expanded role. So you just continue down this list. I'm not going to read everyone, but I think this is pretty self-explanatory. And then you have the various participants in a workspace, right? So notice the participants in the workspace, you don't have that POC, the eBiz POC, because they're not always working on the grants. They have access, they're administrators, they give everybody else access, but they're not always the ones working, in the weeds in this grant preparation process. All right, so this is basically letting you know the folks who can add participants are people who have expanded roles. The owner, the workspace owner, then the workspace AOR, that's the person with the standard application. If you're a participant, just a basic participant, you don't have that authority. You can also see who has the authority to reassign ownership. The folks who can become a workspace owner. Notice, only the workspace AOR and workspace participant can move up, because the first two folks already have that. Again, I'm not going to go through this checklist. You can go to Grants.gov and see for yourself who all has what authority. And then there is a section that indicates, the form level access. All right, so this was the workspace level access, but then, this lets you know who has access to the forms. right? So you can have people who have access to all the forms. You can have people who have access to the forms that are not related to the budget. And then you can have people who have access to specific forms only. And again, this is arranged in order by the person who has the expanded role, who owns the space, right, or who's a participant. All right. And then this video here, I'm not going to turn the video on, but this video lets you know exactly, once you're in the space, how to set it up and what fields you need to complete. All right. So that is our overview of how to get started in the workspace. And again, you need this workspace in order to submit any applications. All right. So without further ado, are there any questions? Are there any comments? So I am going to share some of the questions. All right. Hi, Shawana, if you're still there, thank you so much for checking in. We got a check in from Randy Smith Randolph. Oh, she's from Alton, Illinois. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Randy. And then Randy has a question. Is it necessary to be a qualified grant writer? And when you ask for a qualified grant writer, what exactly do you mean? Are you speaking of a grant writer who has experience with federal grants? Are you speaking of one who writes professionally? And then without seeing your response, Randy, I'm going to say the response I would have to that question is a qualified grant writer is someone who understands the process of writing a grant. So that could be somebody internal to your organization. It could be someone external. It could be a consultant to the organization. And I will say that not all consultants are created equally. I hear horror stories all the time of consultants who spend more time doing research and never producing a document or not having the project management skills in order to do this. So if I were to hire a consultant to focus on my federal grants, I would look for someone who has a knowledge of the Grants.gov system, understands how to navigate the system. I would also look at their track record for successfully applying for grants for their clients. I would also want to look at their work product. I would want to see samples of what they have submitted in the past. I would want someone who is strategic, who is writing to not only respond to the questions, but they're writing to make sure that they can maximize the scores, right? And when I say scores, each application is scored individually, and each section has X number of points. So you want to hire somebody who really understands that point system and is very strategic and understands how to navigate grants.gov. So that's a very, very good question, Randy. I'm glad you asked. And before I go, I wanted to know, are there any other questions, any other comments? Okay, if not, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Again, I want you to join us next week. Next week, we're going to take a break, a small break from talking about grant applications to talking about a very, very important federal funding source, which is employee retention tax credits. So we're going to talk about employee retention tax credits next week. And then we're also going to have a session where we talk strategy. And I'm sure that's probably where the greatest interest is. What strategies should you use in order to maximize your opportunities or your potential to actually be successful in getting a grant? And then next Friday, we're actually going to talk about how you can monitor these grants, and that will have completed our 8-part series on grant funding. All right, so again, I don't see any questions. I don't see any comments. I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule. If you have missed any of the videos, you can see all of the videos on this as well as others on our channel on YouTube. We have stored all of our videos. We have over 100 videos on YouTube, not only on Grants.gov, but we also give you pointers on things like your value proposition, developing programs, developing strategic plans, mission statements, and all of that stuff. Again, there's 100 videos. All right. So I'm going to stop right here and I say thank you so much for joining us. Take care. Bye-bye.